Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the current affairs class. I request everybody to mute your audio and video. If you click on, so we will start with today's session. So in today's session, we will be discussing economic issue. After that, we will be starting with the science and technology current affairs from May month current magazine. Okay, fine. We'll start with economic issues now. Okay, there are some very important topics in economic section. Considering the present economic condition post COVID, a lot of efforts is being a lot of efforts are undertaken by the government in order to revive the economy, in order to protect our economy from the crisis that is going to follow. Let's start discussing them. These are very important. You can almost say that there is going to be legislative changes, structural changes, etc. That will have a long-term impact on our economy. So this will be a lot of developments have taken place and will be taking place that will have an impact. Right. So first we will discuss this Sarfazi Act. All of you might have read the Sarfazi Act in your static economic topic. So Sarfazi Act is an institutional mechanism in order to help the banks or financial institutions to recover bad loans. All of you would have read this in your static topic. So Sarfazi Act, the full form is the Securitization and Reconstruction of Financial Assets and Enforcement of Securities Interest Act 2002. So this act, okay, it's a law in order to help the financial institutions to recover bad loans, okay, like non-performing assets, etc. So this will allow the banks to sell away assets, underlying assets, okay, of the bad loans. This is the law. So it's an institutional mechanism. It was enacted in 2002 to empower the banks. See, very simple is, earlier the banks or the financial institutions had to go to the court, okay, get permission to sell away pledged assets. Okay, now when you take a loan, okay, you have to pledge assets or some kind of a collateral has to be given. Okay, only then you will get a loan, let's say. Now, if you don't pay the loan, the banks can sell away the assets and recover these loans. Before the Sarfazi Act, the banks had to go to the court and get permission to sell these assets. But under the Sarfazi Act, they can sell away the assets without going to the court. So it is empowering the bank in very simple terms. That's what I'm trying to make you understand. So some of the points over here about Sarfazi Act is, okay, it helps to recover loan, but this is applicable only for secured loan. Okay, so the law also helps promotes the setting up of asset reconstruction company. What is this asset reconstruction companies? So these are special companies or special financial institutions that will buy bad loans from the financial institutions like bank. So the banks will have bad loans. So these loans can be sold to the asset reconstruction company. These asset reconstruction companies will use Sarfazi Act and use various approach to recover the bad loans. Okay, that is what is asset reconstruction company. These are specialized companies which recovers the bad loans. Okay, by either taking control of the company or taking control of the land or selling away, or various other approaches are used by the asset reconstruction company to recover. So this also is provided under the Sarfazi Act. Okay, there are some points that you need to remember, which is not usually discussed in the static topic. See, the law does not apply to unsecured loan, okay, or loan below 1 lakh, or where remaining debt is below 20% of the original principal. All these things are asked in your preliminary examination. So Sarfazi Act does not apply to unsecured loan, only secured loan where there is an underlying asset. Number 2, it does not apply to loan below 1 lakh. Number 3, it does not apply to those loans where only 20% of the principal, that means 80% of the principal amount has already been paid. So this provides a legal framework for securitization of loans. What is the securitization? Look at this definition. All these are very important, right? Securitization is practice of pooling various types of debt instruments, that is loans, etc., and selling them as bonds. What is asset reconstruction? Activity of converting NPA into performing asset. Okay, asset reconstruction is converting non-performing asset into performing asset. Now let's say, okay, a bank has given loan to Kingfisher Airlines. Now Kingfisher Airlines is not paying back the loan interest or principal amount. So it has become NPA. So under the Sarfazi Act, what the bank can do is bank can take over the Kingfisher airline, okay, and start running it on its own. Or it can sell away the Kingfisher airline to asset reconstruction company, which in turn will start running the Kingfisher airline and start making profit. This profit will now replace the interest. Earlier, the banks were expecting interest from the Kingfisher airline, but now they themselves will take over Kingfisher Airlines and start running the company, and the profit will help them to meet whatever money they have given. So converting NPA into performing asset is known as asset reconstruction. Enforcement of security without the intervention of the court. As I told you, before this Sarfazi Act, okay, before Sarfazi Act, the banks had to go to the courts. Now they bypass this. They can directly sell away these assets. Now, why is it in news? A small point that you have to remember from the prelims point of view. The Supreme Court has ruled that all cooperative banks in the country can now make use of Sarfazi Act in order to recover loans, okay, bad loans in the cooperative banks. Okay, so that is why this is in news. Okay, just remember this additional point. Okay, rest I think you would have studied in your conventional classes. Okay, so this is Sarfazi Act. Okay, please remember these minute details from your prelims point of view. Next, now coming to all the measures taken by the government in order to reform. Okay, I hope you can see my screen. I can't. Okay, cool.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. Right. So now coming to various measures taken by the government, okay, in order to revive the economy. Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan. Okay, it's a very, very important topic considering, I mean, for another year or so, and then historically also we'll be reading all these things. Okay, so therefore it is very important, and there are a lot of factual information. Just pick out those or identify those. Okay, identify those which are necessary from the prelims point of view and generally understand them. Okay, so there's no need to by heart. So over a period of time, all the sector, the government is trying to target all the sector, whether it is agriculture, whether it is labor, whether it is infrastructure, exports, imports, all the sectors are being targeted by the government, okay, to revive them. Okay, so this is what is the broad object. I mean, the government has come up with this name, Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan. Okay, so it is some basic. You all would have read in your newspaper. Let's just quickly revise, and if there is something which needs explanation, I'll focus on that. Otherwise, it is self-explanatory. A lot of factual. So basically, if you see in your basic economy, you would have read. Okay, so we are going through, let's say, slow growth or recession. Okay, over a period of time, it will end up becoming a recession. Now the growth has already slowed down for various reasons. Obviously, lockdown was one of the major reasons why we are in this condition. Second is exports have deteriorated. All these factors are affecting our economy. So therefore, there is an economic slowdown. Okay, economic slowdown. What is the natural? I mean, what in your static economy, you would have already read. What will the government do? The government will have to, start spending more money. Yes, government has to start spending more money. It has to reduce the taxes, increase subsidies, expenditure on infrastructure, etc. Right? Stimulus package. Yes, very good. So stimulus package will be given. Okay, so this kind of policy, okay, is known as what? Anybody? This kind of policy by the government is known as what? In order to revive the economy by giving stimulus packages, okay, by reducing, is known as, yes, fiscal what? Fiscal expansionary policy. Expansionary, yes, very good. Expansionary policy. So the government is adopting an expansionary policy. What is expansionary policy? The government will increase its expenditures. Okay, so by by increasing spending on infrastructure, by giving more subsidies, etc. This is very clear. This is the basic that you should be knowing. Now let's see what policies are adopted by the government over here. So now we are able to visualize what we would have read in our static topics. So Atmanirbhar Bharat, the road ahead. So it is made up of 5 pillars. Atmanirbhar means self-reliant India. So it will target, it is made up of 5 pillars. One is economy, the infrastructure. system, demography, and demand. Okay, economy quantum jump. Okay, so we will aim at increasing our growth rate. We will focus on developing infrastructure, whether it is roads, railways, etc. Then we will try to reform our system, focusing on technology incorporation. Then demography. Okay, make use of our demography by giving them skill, improving their health, education, etc. And to promote demand. Okay, full utilization of demand and demand by creating demand among the population. Okay, so this is the 5 pillars of Reliant India. Okay. Now, so basically, the Prime Minister has announced an economic package of 20 lakh crore. Please remember, this 20 lakh is not a standalone. It includes all the money that has already been given in the past, plus the RBI's announcement with respect to what it is going to give. So this is made up of around 10% of the GDP. The focus will be on 4L, right? Land, labor, liquidity, and law. Okay, land reforms and labor reforms, liquidity, that is pumping more money into the economy, and legal changes or changes to the laws, making them more updated to the current context. So they will be catering on laborers, middle class, cottage, MSME, etc. So we will discuss that in detail. So this is what was announced by the Prime Minister, followed by the Finance Minister announcing packages to various sectors, which we will be discussing in the next page. Okay. So the bold reform that is needed is a supply chain reform in agriculture, rationalization of our direct and indirect taxes, simplification of laws, improving our human resource, promoting a strong financial system, etc., is being planned over here. Is that okay? So this is a broad object, a broad, objectives of the Atmanirbhar Bharat. Okay. Now let's see what followed after this. What the finance minister of our country announced under this broad Atmanirbhar package. So the first part of this, so 5 parts are there. So the first part of this economic stimulus, that is expansionary policy, economic stimulus package, focused on MSME sectors. Okay, MSME sectors, the new definition, I hope all of you are aware. I'll just put it up over here. The new definition of MSME. So one of the reforms, so definition of MSME has been changed. Okay. So one is they have increased the investment limit, and second is they have removed the distinction between the manufacturing and service sector. So there is no distinction. Earlier, the definition of micro, small, and medium scale industries were on the basis of manufacturing was separate and service sector was separate. If you see here, this is the old definition. Old definition, micro industries were classified where investment was less than 25 lakh. Okay. For a service sector, investment of less than 10 lakh. For small, investment less than 5 crore, that is 25 lakhs to 5 crore, they were called as small. And investment between 5 crore to 10 crore, they were called as medium. See, these are all very, very important from your prelims point of view. Very basic, but very important. But if you are not have clarity over here, you might end up making silly mistakes. So the 2 changes that were done was the investment limits were increased and the distinction between manufacturing sector and service sectors were removed, and the turnover, and they have added turnover. Okay, along with investment, they have also added turnover. That means how much business they are doing every year. Now let's see the new classification. So manufacturing and service sector, investment of 1 crore. Okay, less than 1 crore, they are called as micro, and a turnover of less than 5 crore, they are called as micro. Investment of 10 crore, 1 crore to 10 crore, they are called as small, and turnover of less than 50 crore. Medium, investment from 10 crore to 20 crore and turnover of less than 100 crore, they will be categorized as MSMEs. MSMEs will benefit. So you have a separate ministry, okay, and there are various schemes focusing on MSME sector. Yesterday we had discussed about the handholding approach of MSME sector, etc. Same way, lot of initiatives are planned because they play a very important role in providing employment, in self-entrepreneurship, in our exports. Major share comes from MSME. Okay, a large section of organized employment is provided by MSME sector. So they play a critical role in our economy. So therefore, the government is first has targeted MSME. Why? Because if you target MSME, it will not only improve the output, but also will ensure employment. So there's a lot of joblessness or unemployment now. By promoting MSME, the government is going to promote employment. Is that okay? Now let's see what all has been done. These are factual information, nothing much to explain other than that. I hope everybody has written this. Turnover means the total business in a year is your turnover. How much business activity or transaction is taking place, that is your turnover. Profit is after expenditure. So, okay, turnover, I mean, in very simple terms, okay. So, turnover minus expenditure will give you your profit. Okay, cool. Now, is that okay? Everybody has written it out. So, I mean, in case you can always take screenshot or something like that. Okay, it's already there here. This is much more simpler. Okay, all this you should know from your prelims point of view. Okay, good. Now, let's see, what are the various effort. Collateral free loan of 3 lakh crore is going to be given to MSME sector. Okay. So all these are factual. I'll just read it through. The stressed MSME subordinate debt. What is subordinate debt means? They have already taken loan. Okay. Then new loan under this is known as subordinate debt. See, I'm trying to not discuss in technical terms. Very simple for you to rule out option. I'm trying to tell you. Subordinate debt provision of 20,000 crore. That means a stressed MSME has already taken loan. Okay. Because of the stress, they are not able to make profit, and therefore they are not able to repay back the loan. Now they need new loan. These loans are known as subordinate loans or subordinate debts. So government will give 20,000 crore of subordinate debts. Okay. Then mother fund, daughter fund for MSME. That means they will be giving financial institution who give loans to the MSMEs. A fund of fund. Okay. A fund of corpus of 10,000 crore will be created. The definition of MSME has been revised, that I have already discussed. Then e-market linkage, okay, so that they will be able to participate. They will be able to sell their products through online market. Okay. Then Government of India and PSU will clear all the receivables in 45 days. That means what is receivable? Again, very simple terms. Receivable means now an MSME has sold something to the Government of India. They are yet to receive the money from the government. So they are called as receivable. I hope you understood. Okay, so MSME has sold something to the government. Let's say a stationery company, pen manufacturer. He has sold the pens. He has sold the pens to the government. Okay, and then the government is yet to pay. So that is receivable. So that they have to clear within 45 days. Then for the employee, okay, liquidity relief of 2,500 crore EPF support. Okay, for the employee. So this will prevent the the MSME from removing the employees from the job, etc. So EPF contribution will be paid by Government of India for another 3 months. Then statutory EPF contribution has been reduced to 10% from 12% earlier. This will infuse almost 6,750 crore liquidity to these organizations. Okay. Then next, NBFCs and all that. Okay. Special liquidity schemes for investing in investment grade debt paper of NBFCs, etc., guaranteed by the government. So this will help them to get more money. Okay. Next, partial credit guarantee scheme. Okay, credit guarantee schemes where the government will give guarantee to the credit to the loans instead of collaterals. The first 20% loss will be borne by the guarantor, that is the Government of India. Partial credit guarantee. That means if somebody defaults, okay, this credit guarantee scheme, okay, will repay back that loan. Next, DISCOM, Power Distribution Company, one-time emergency liquidity injection. So 90,000 crore will be crore against all the receivable. So these are some of the things that are being done for MSME sector. This was announced first. Is that okay? So you can just read it again. Okay. How to make sure to remember the numbers given. Yeah, see, numbers are not very, very important. Okay, see, you should have a fair idea. Nobody will ask you how much money is being pumped, etc. directly, unless it is very, very important. Okay, some like, see, for example, liquidity relief of 2,500 crore is being, all that is not important. You don't have to remember those names. Something which is very important, okay, like 12% has been reduced to 10%, may be asked. Okay, but again, numbers you repeatedly read, revise again and again, make micro notes of it. Okay, micro notes, reduce it and make it very simple. I mean, so like, you should be able to remember. Don't get worried about the numbers. In prelims, how you are supposed to answer is have a idea, and you should be able to rule out the options. Okay, identify which is the incorrect option. Okay, then that is a better way. So therefore, you don't have to by heart all the numbers. More you read repeatedly, okay, keep one single magazine, repeatedly revise it, you will be able to remember it. Okay, fine. Then real estate. Okay, real estate. Regulators can invoke force majeure. So what is this force majeure? Refers to a clause that is included in the contract to remove liability due to natural or unavoidable circumstances. Okay, so a contract, okay, is being signed between two parties, but because of natural and unavoidable catastrophe, they can deviate from this. This is known as force majeure. Okay, so real estate regulators can invoke force majeure. Okay, especially the real estate sector is showing a lot of problem, crisis because of reverse migration, etc. So therefore, this benefit can be given to the real estate. Then a reduction of 25% of the existing rate of TDS, okay, or tax collection at source, is also proposed. Due date of income tax return has been extended, okay, from July 31st to November 30. So if you are an income tax payer, you don't have to pay till November 30. Then there was also the scheme Vivad Se Vishwas scheme has been extended till December 31st, 2020. Okay, so what is this Vivad Se Vishwas scheme? Anybody? Yes. So income tax. So whenever there is dispute. Yes. Correct. Good. Defaulters can pay dues and end to pending direct tax. Yes, very good. Okay, so this Vivad Se Vishwas scheme, okay, is a temporary scheme. Matlab, a time frame will be given within which, if there is any tax dispute, okay, the defaulter can pay the tax. Okay, they will the government will not put any charges. Okay, like on them. Right, so that is what it is. Right, Vivad Se Vishwas scheme has been extended till December 31st. Good. Okay, so these are the first part of it. Second part was aimed at migrant workers, small farmers, street vendors, and affordable housing. So over here, if you look at the infographic, it is more clear. Okay, so migrants. Okay, targeting migrants. So migrants will be given 35,000 crore. Free food grains for migrants. Okay, 35,000 crore. 3,500 crore has been allocated for this, for free food for migrants. Okay, so the migrants will get 5 kg wheat or rice per person, 1 kg pulse per family for the next 2 months. And also the government will roll out one nation, one ration card. So earlier the ration cards were restricted to the states. Okay, so there was no migration of these ration cards, but now the same ration card will be valid throughout India. So this has lot of benefit. From your mains point of view, it is very important. One nation, one ration card. What is its benefit? Okay, and what is the challenges associated with one nation, one ration scheme? Benefit, I think you all can appreciate. Can anybody tell me the challenges associated with one nation, one ration scheme? Can anybody tell me the challenges of implementing one nation, one ration scheme? Challenges, matlab, what problems can be seen because of this? Technological glitches. Yes, this will be successful only if this ration card is using digital technology. It is linked with Aadhaar, but there can be technological problems. Yes, misuse will be reduced. Pratham has said that misuse of ration card. Actually, this can reduce the misuse. If you can explain how it will lead to more misuse. Okay, because this will be a digital, it will be directly linked with the person's Aadhaar, so therefore misuse can be, ghost beneficiaries will be reduced actually. Aadhaar authenticity, yes, good. Purnima said identification of beneficiary, yes, especially the migrants. Okay, network issue, yes, very good. Okay, so like this, questions can be asked from your mains point of view. So you should be able to analyze the one nation, one rations card. It's a very, very important initiative. Okay. So trying to reform our food distribution system. So therefore you need to know all these things. Next, farmers. Okay, 30,000 crore additional emergency working capital fund is given distributed through NABARD to benefit 30 million small and marginal farmers. 2 lakh concessional credit boost through Kisan credit cards will be given. Okay, for farmers and fishermen. Street vendors 5,000 crore special credit facilities will be given. Okay, job creation 6,000 crore of Campa fund will be used for creating job, especially in urban, semi-urban and rural. What is this Campa fund? Anybody? Forest losses. Yes, it is for, yes, compensatory afforestation. Very good. So compensatory afforestation fund management and planning authority, Campa fund. So basically those who are not aware, so under our forest act, if the forest is deviated for non-forest purpose, okay, so a compensatory afforestation has to be done in the same period. I mean, there are a way of calculating all of that. So in case if they don't get this particular land, they have to give compensation. So this fund, the collected fund is being kept under this authority called as Campa, compensatory authority, compensatory afforestation fund management and planning authority. So there is a lot of money over there which is not spent. Basically this money had to be spent for developing unforested land into forest, to compensate for the loss of forest. So this money is anyways lying down there. Now there has been an exception that is made. This money can be used for creation of job. It was exclusively mentioned in the act actually that this money can be used only for forest purpose. But now because of the economic crisis, this money will be utilized for creation of job. I hope you are all clear. Okay, if you are not clear, just go back later and read about this Campa. Okay, it's an act, and through this act they have created an authority called as Campa. Okay, now 70,000 crore has been given to boost housing sector. So credit linked subsidy scheme for those with 6 to 18 lakh income, okay, will be given. Then Mudra loans. Okay, Mudra loans is for MSME sector. 1,500 crore relief for Mudra Shishu loan holders. Government will provide an interest subvention of 2% for the next 12 months. Is that okay? So these are all important, very important, okay, from both prelims as well as from your mains point of view. Next, third economic package, mainly focusing on agricultural sector. Very, very important to reform, to revive the agriculture. Okay, so now that a lot of people have gone back to agriculture, okay, reverse migration. So we are focusing on agricultural sector, which not only will increase the productivity, but also generate employment. Now let's see, agriculture infrastructure. 1 lakh crore fund has been created. Okay, for aggregators, farmer producer organization, primary agricultural cooperative society for strengthening infrastructure, farm gate infrastructure, whether it is warehouses, whether it is transportation, storage, okay, food process, whatever, farm gate infrastructure, cold storage, all these infrastructure development will be set up. That for that fund has been created, which will be given to aggregators like farmer producer organization, cooperative society, etc. Next, micro food enterprise. Okay, so you all know that we have to promote food processing industry. Scheme will be executed on a cluster base to promote micro food enterprises. Okay, so the special focus will be on women, SC/ST, and in aspirational districts. Then fisheries sector, 20,000 crore will be given. Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana. Yesterday we had discussed a little bit about it. So the focus will be on employment. Okay, focus will be on employment rather than giving entitlement. Okay, next, animal husbandry, vaccination, etc. Money has been given for that. Herbal cultivation, then beekeeping initiative, etc. There's an article on that. We will discuss it in more detail. Operation Green. So Operation Green earlier was applicable only to tomatoes, onions, and potatoes, which was called as top crops. Now this Operation Green will be extended to all fruits and vegetable. Okay, hence the name top has been replaced with total of rupees 500 crore. is for this particular scheme. Okay, so just go and read again later on what is this Operation Green, little bit more in detail. Okay, procurement of this top crops and then distributing them. Basically, this was aimed at preventing the price fluctuation. All of you are aware that especially like onions, etc., a lot of price fluctuation takes place, seasonal, etc. So to avoid this, Government of India had come up with a scheme called as Operation Green. Next. Amendment of Essential Commodities Act to enable better price realization to farmers and make agricultural sector more competitive. So, Essential Commodities Act, if you are not aware, just read a little bit about it. Very, very important provision. It's there even in our economic survey. Then agricultural foodstuffs will be deregulated. Okay. What else? Stock limit to be imposed under very exceptional circumstances only. Okay, so that all these things will allow the farmers to directly sell their agricultural commodities in the open market or to whomever they want. Earlier they had to go and sell it in the APMC yard itself, or there were stock limits for merchants, so they could not store more than what is permitted. All this restricted agricultural marketing. Agreed, all of you are able to appreciate they regulate the agriculture. Too much of regulation of agricultural market prevented farmers from selling directly in the open market. This had distorted the market system of demand and supply. So therefore the agricultural prices, etc., were regulated heavily by the government. To prevent all this, now we are amending the Essential Commodities Act. Earlier the government had come out with the model APMC Act. Many of the states have reformed their APMC Act. We have come up with the ENAM, National Agricultural Market, etc. In addition to this Essential Commodities Act, as suggested by the Economic Survey, the government has tried to reform this. Then a central law will be formulated to provide adequate choice to the farmer to sell produce at attractive prices, barrier-free interstate trade, framework for e-trading of agricultural produce, etc. are being proposed. Is that okay? There is a proposal, if you guys know, that they want to bring the agricultural sector into the concurrent subject. So from your mains point of view, they can ask what is the merits and the challenges associated with bringing agriculture into your concurrent list. Is it good or is it bad? So something like that. So all these things you can use while writing your answers. Is that okay? So this is with respect to agricultural sector. Okay, very briefly about agricultural sector reforms. Next, the fourth economic package focusing on mining, aviation, defense, space, and other industrial sector. So mining, as you all would have already read in the previous month's current affairs magazine, government is trying to liberalize our mining sector, especially coal. We have seen that the government has started allowing FDI in coal mining. It has allowed for competitive bidding of coal mining blocks, etc. Okay, without any restriction on selling of coal. Earlier there was end-use restriction of coal. All those reforms the government had already brought about. Now with respect to other, some commercial coal mining will be introduced, removing government monopoly. So private sector will be allowed. So foreign investors, so the foreign investors will introduce modern technology, etc. Government will use money to develop infrastructure. The distinction between captive and non-captive mines will be removed. So I had discussed with some of the students earlier, captive mining means, so they will be like for example, our power distribution, power generating company, they will be given coal blocks. Okay, the coal will be used by these power producing companies itself. They cannot sell it in the open market. Those mines are called as captive mines. Okay. Distinction between captive and non-captive mines would be removed, allowing transfer of mining lease and sale of surplus unused minerals. 45 coal block for commercial mining, true? Yes. Okay. Fine. Good. That's what. Okay. I hope you guys understood what is captive and non-captive mines. Yes. Captive mine has usage restriction. Yes. Very good. Okay. It is. So captive mines have usage restriction. That means the coal that is mined from these captive mines can be used for the specific purpose. Even if they have excess, they cannot sell it. They cannot sell it. Is that understood? They cannot sell it. Next, defense manufacturing, FDI limit in defense manufacturing has been increased. Can you please repeat it once again? Yes, I'll repeat it once again. Captive mining and non-captive mining. See, captive mining may, okay, so let's say this is the coal block. So this coal block has been allocated to a power producing company. Okay, power producing company. So this company can mine coal from this block. Okay, so let's say they require only, let's say 100 ton of coal. They are mining 150 ton of coal. So they have an excess of 50 tons of coal. Now they cannot sell it in the open market because it is a captive mine. So the usage is restricted. That means this coal block can be used to produce coal that can be used only by this, let's say, a power company. They cannot sell it in the open market. Is that okay? Even if they have excess. So what is happening? These excess coal, though being produced, okay, cannot be sold in the open market. So we have lot of coal, excess coal in our country, but because of regulations, because of end use restriction, etc., we are not utilizing it. So therefore, we are importing coal. Just imagine, we can actually produce, replace large amount of imports, but still we are importing because of lot of such restrictions. I hope you understood, Bharat. Okay, cool. Next, defense 74%. Okay, so all these numbers are important. Somebody, Bharat, was asking, I think, right? So you're asking that these numbers, yes, 74% is now being allowed. Earlier, only 49%. Okay, up to 100% were allowed in defense. Please remember that, but only for cutting edge technology. Earlier, up to 49. See, those who know, FDI comes to India through two routes. One is automatic route, and the other one is the approval route. Approval route means they have to take permission from the government. Okay, they have to take permission from the government. So automatic route earlier, 49% FDI was allowed. Beyond 49%, 49 to 100% FDI also was allowed in defense, but it required approval of the government. So now what the government has done? 74%. So this will not only bring technology into India, but also generate employment. That is why. So somebody has messaged, it will impact the environment. Yes, yes, exactly. So coal mining will obviously affect the environment. Okay, so now we need to actually, if you see the criticism of these coal policy, if you have read from your mains point of view, these are important. The criticism of this coal policy, government has liberalized coal sector. But the problem of this liberalization of coal is that now we should actually be focusing on renewable energy. Instead, we are focusing again back on coal. Okay. So anyway, so those are all debate from your mains point of view. Next, social infrastructure. Okay, creation of viability gap funding. Will NGT play a role on coal block? No. NGT will not play a role. They will be only playing a role post allocation or whatever environmental problems, etc. Only then they will be playing a role, NGT. Okay, so if there is any associated environmental problems, environmental clearance, if the proper mechanism or has not been adopted, then NGT will play a role, not in the allocation of coal block. Okay, next, social infrastructure. Okay, boost private investment in social infrastructure. Viability gap funding. What is viability gap funding? Viability gap funding. Okay, with around 8,100 crore viability gap funding will be given to boost private investment in social infra. What is social infrastructure? Like schools, hospitals, etc. They are social infrastructure, piped water projects, etc. Now, viability gap funding is required. What is viability gap? Anybody? Because it might be profitable? No. Total capital cost is paid by the government? No. Gap between outlay and commercial viability. Yeah, that is okay. Gap between the outlay and commercial viability. Right. See, for example, not because it might not. Yeah, correct. Rohini, because it is not profitable. Yes. See, what happens is now, for example, if I build a hospital, Okay, I would require, let's say, 100 crore to build a hospital. Okay, this 100 crore, by the time I recover, it will be, let's say, 10-20 years. So my money, 100 crore, is caught up in over here. So I will not come and invest. So therefore, this viability gap funding is given so as to attract private investment in those sectors which may not be profitable immediately or less profitable. Somebody has mentioned this, Anandu. Yes, very good. Less profitable but important. So some of the sectors may be less profitable, like hospital. Okay, so hospital may not be very profitable, but is very important. So private sector will be given this viability gap funding. I hope you understood. Yes. Next, aviation sector. Open up Indian airspace to allow foreign companies, etc., which is expected to gain around 1,000 crore per year, etc. 6 more airports and all this under the public-private partnership. As you all know, because of lockdown and all, the aviation sector is under huge burden. Already it was under huge stress, but because of lockdown, they are playing again plagued by this. So we are opening up our Indian domestic airspace. Next, power department and utilities in union territories will be privatized. Okay, so phased manner, we want to privatize. As you all are aware, the power distribution companies or power utility, etc., they're all making losses. Okay, for various reasons. Now the government, one of the proposal is to privatize this public utility company. Now they have started with union territory. Later on, they will put pressure on the state government to privatize them also, to give it to Geo. Okay, so then from tomorrow, I mean from next, we will all get electricity from Geo. Okay, next, ISRO. Okay, private sector will be permitted to use their facilities. Okay, so that also will help generate revenue. Then what else? Medical isotope through PPP model for medical isotopes, etc., will be done. So this is for your radio diagnostics, etc. It will be used. I hope it is clear. This is the fourth economic support that is being provided by the government. Next, fifth trench of the economic package. So here the government is focusing on NREGA, health, education, business, decriminalization of companies act, etc. So mainly on human resource, etc., and then on other business industries, etc. Now NREGA, as you all know, as we discussed in the previous class, okay, NREGA, this huge demand for NREGA because of reverse migration. The 40% increase in job seekers through NREGA. 40,000 crore, therefore, is going to be given in addition to what was given earlier. Health infrastructure and education. So 100 universities will be given automatic permission to start online courses. So all of you know, now we also have innovated and we have also started online classes. Same way, 100 university will be allowed to start online courses, okay, with degree courses, etc., will be allowed from by May 30th. Automatically, they'll be allowed. Then, for giving psychosocial support to the students, teachers, and their family from mental health, you know that lockdown has not only affected economically, but socially and psychologically, to give them support. This word you have to remember, Manodarpan, has been launched in order to provide psychosocial support to them. Then infectious disease block. All these are knee-jerk reaction. Now COVID, etc., is in news, so therefore the government is promoting all this. All districts will have infectious disease block. Research in healthcare, etc., will be implemented. A national digital health blueprint will be implemented. Then corporate, any debt incurred by companies on account of COVID would not be included in the category of default. Okay, and no fresh insolvency procedure would be initiated for a year. Okay, so for 1 year, okay, companies, even if they face default, they will not be categorized, so, and no fresh insolvency proceedings will be introduced. Okay, next, MSME, a special insolvency framework will be notified. So under the section of IBC, Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code, the minimum threshold to initiate insolvency proceeding would be raised to 1 crore. Okay, from the 1 lakh. Okay, so this will benefit the MSME. What is insolvency? What do you understand by this? Anybody? Is it there somewhere? Insolvency and bankruptcy. What do you mean by insolvency? Being unable to pay the money owed. Yes, exactly. Okay, insolvency. When so, what is the difference insolvency and bankruptcy? So, insolvency is when they are, yeah, when they cannot repay back the money that is owed. Okay, so that is bankruptcy. Insolvency, when it is legally, when they legally declare themselves as bankrupt, it is known. Yes, court declares. Very good. So when they court or legally, when they are declared bankrupt, it is known as insolvency. Okay, it is known as insolvency. Good, good, fine. Okay, so earlier, okay, even if they had to repay 1 lakh, they would be declared, or insolvency proceedings would be initiated. But now it has been increased to 1 crore. Okay, all these numbers are important, right? Next, corporate affairs. Companies would be allowed to directly list securities in permissible foreign jurisdiction automatically. Okay. Then decriminalization of the Companies Act in violations involving minor technical and procedural defaults. So minor, minor defaults or any minor crime, they would be declared as, they would be decriminalized. Next, a majority of compoundable offences sections will be shifted to internal adjudicating mechanism so that they can be resolved amicably. Okay. Then declog the criminal court and National Companies Law Tribunal. 7 compoundable offences under the Companies Act will be dropped together and 5 will be dealt under the alternative framework. See, all these numbers are not important. See, what we are discussing here is the government is being more, what do you say, is helping these companies which are facing problems, okay, for minor offenses. Just remember it like that. For minor offenses, criminal charges have been dropped. Okay, minor offenses, criminal charges have been dropped. Okay, so regulatory mechanism have been relaxed. Okay, because already they are facing economic problems. So let's relax the legal this one. Okay, so that is what they are planning to do over here. Right. Next, public sector PSUs will be privatized. All sectors are now open for privatization. Right. Define strategic sector. So we are disinvesting. Okay, so we will get more money. That money can be utilized for economic packages, etc. Next, list of strategic sectors. Okay, will be notified. In strategic sector, at least one enterprise. See, strategic sectors now, at least one enterprise will remain with public sector, but private sector also will be allowed. Earlier, in strategic sectors, private were not allowed. Now the government will list strategic sector. In strategic sector, private will be allowed, but at least one public sector unit will be working. Okay, so that there will not be monopoly of the private. Government will have a say in it. I hope you understood. In sectors which are identified, see what they are trying to tell is now all sectors are open for private. All sectors are open for private. Certain sectors will be identified as strategic sectors. So even in strategic sector, private will be allowed, but along with private, there will be at least one PSU. There will be at least one PSU. Along with private, at least one PSU will be present in the strategic sector. Is that okay? So that is what the government has decided. Privatization, disinvestments, etc. So more money will government will be able to garner. Then center has decided to increase the borrowing limit of the state from 3% to 5% of the GDP of the state. Is that okay? This number again are very important. Okay, there are, like, if you see here, 1 or 2 number is important, not all numbers. Okay, so earlier they were allowed to borrow 3%. Now they are allowed to borrow up to 5%. Obviously, because even the state government's expenditures has increased. Okay, because even the state governments have announced economic packages, etc. So obviously they also require this kind of money. Okay. Right, so this is what the government has announced. Okay, very briefly, there are more details which you can read from other sources also, but at least so much you should be aware. As you read more and more, you can add points. The government will announce here every day something or the other which will be related to this. This is a broad roadmap. Okay, this is a broad roadmap, not a detailed analysis or etc. The details will be given as and when they announce these schemes. Is that understood, all of you? five economic packages announced by the government to tackle the economic crisis due to COVID. Is that understood, all of you? Under the Atmanirbhar Bharat. Okay? So this is what it is. Guys, are you guys with me? Okay, cool. So first part, second part, third part, fourth part, and fifth part. So this is all to do with the government, mainly to do with the fiscal policy, etc. Now coming to the RBI, okay, that is the monetary policy side. What the RBI is going to do to help the economy. Okay, so some points related to this. Okay, factual. These are all very factual in nature. So refinancing facility to SIDBI extended for another 90 days. So what is this refinancing? On April 17, 2020, the RBI announced a special refinancing facility. What is SIDBI? Is it a bank? Is it a NBFC? Or is it a DFI? Small Industrial Development Bank of India. That is what is SIDBI. So what is it? Is it a bank? Is it a NBFC or is it a DFI? Yes, it is a DFI. Okay. So SIDBI will refinance banks and NBFCs and other financial institutions who give loans to small industries. Yes, DFI. So there are small industries who take loan from banks. So they will be refinanced by SIDBI. So this refinancing facility of 15,000 crore is going to be given to SIDBI by RBI. Okay, RBI is that okay? Fine. So this has been extended now. Then relaxation of rules. Okay, for foreign portfolio investment under the voluntary retention route. Okay, now foreign portfolio investors are who? They are foreigners who come and invest in securities in India. Okay, security instruments in India. I'll repeat again, foreign portfolio investors. So there are two types of investments that can come to India. One is FDI and the other one is FPI. Foreign portfolio investments, they invest in securities. They invest in securities like equity instruments and debt instruments like bonds, etc., or securities like equity like shares, etc. Okay, so they are called as FPI. So there is a route within this FPI. There is a route which is known as voluntary retention route. What is this voluntary retention route in simple term? This voluntary retention route allows certain relaxation to FPI if they promise to keep the money for a fixed period of time. For a fixed period of time. Is that understood? Okay. So a voluntary retention scheme under which the RBI will relax regulatory provisions of FPI if this FPI promise to keep the investment for a fixed period of time. See, FPI is called as hot money. Okay, or fly-by-night money. Why is it called as hot money or fly-by-night money? Because they are here only to make profit. Once they make profit, okay, or if they feel that they are not going to make profit, or if their market is falling, they will take the money and go back to their country. So therefore, they are called as hot money. Is that understood? Hot money or fly-by-night money. Yeah, they will not take away the share, they will sell the share and take away the money back. Okay, they will take away the money back. So this will add volatility into the economy. I hope I am making myself clear. So you have FPI who come and invest, let's say, in shares. I told you they invest in equity instrument or debt instrument. So invest in shares. So when they are making profit, they will keep the money in the Indian markets. But once they start making loss, or once the share market is falling, what will they do? They will sell their shares and take the money back to their country. So this is why it is known as fly-by-night money. So when they take away the money and go back, it will lead to volatility. Okay, it will lead to volatility in the share markets. Our share market will start crashing. So in order to avoid this, one way is the RBI has introduced this voluntary retention, where they have to keep some amount of money for a fixed period of time, okay, before they withdraw. For them to motivate them to use this route, certain relaxation is given. Okay, this is known as voluntary retention route. I hope all of you understood. So to attract more investment, this is being done. Good. Next, exporters can now avail bank loan for higher period. Okay, so that their interest, their debt servicing would be extended for a longer period of time and reduce their burden. Okay, next, loan facility to Exim Bank. Okay, the governor has announced the line of credit of 15,000 crore to Exim Bank. Exim Bank also is a DFI, okay, which supports export and import, okay, oriented loans. Next, more time will be given to importers to pay for their import. Next, extension of regulatory measures by another 3 months. So various now the various financial institutions, etc., have to meet certain regulatory requirement, whether it is CRR, SRR, whatever regulatory requirement, they will be extended by 3 months. Next, provision to convert interest on working capital into interest term loan. What is working capital? Money that is required to run the business, day-to-day business. That is known as working capital. So the banks will now be allowed to convert the interest on working capital into interest term loan, that is fixed or long-term loans. Next, maximum credit which the bank can extend to a particular corporate group has now been increased from 25% to 30%. Earlier, a bank could extend loan up to only up to 25%. Now it has been extended to 30%. Then state is allowed to borrow more from the consolidated sinking fund. This I will explain later. There is an article on this only, consolidated sinking fund. Okay. So these are some of the measures. I'll explain the last one. Rest all you understood? I hope you understood. Should I explain anything? Okay. So these are the additional measures that has been introduced by the RBI. I hope all of you can appreciate this. Is there anything that needs to be explained? I'll move to the next topic. Okay, great. Fine. So these are the economic measures taken by the government and RBI, or will be taken by the government and RBI in the coming times. Okay, now some other information or facts that we need to know from prelims. New digital currency is being started by the China. So this will be a digital currency of renminbi. Okay, so it is the currency of China. So it is nothing but the electronic form of renminbi, whose value will be equal to the notes and coins that is already in circulation. Is that okay? So therefore, it will be controlled by the Central Bank of China. Unlike other, digital currency like which is based on your blockchain technology, etc. This one will be regulated by the central bank, and this also will be based on blockchain technology. Okay, there is a fact over here. Facebook has its own digital currency, which is known as Libra. Okay. Okay, Bharat has message that there are 4 pilot cities. Okay, Shenzhen, Suzhou, Zhejiang, and Chengdu. Okay, will be the digital currency will be tried on a pilot basis. Okay, thank you. Fine. So just read about cryptocurrency, etc. Right, based on blockchain technology. So these are all something which you would have read in your conventional topic. You can read more about it. Okay. Next, MCA 21. MCA 21 is basically a digital initiative of Ministry of Corporate Affairs. Okay, there is nothing much over here. So the Corporate Affairs Ministry, okay, will make the MCA 21 registry available for research studies into corporate governance and other related topics. So it is an e-governance initiative of Ministry of Corporate Affairs. That is one fact you have to remember. MCA 21 is the e-governance initiative of Ministry of Corporate Affairs. Why is it in news? Because the data that is there under this MCA 21 will now be made public or will be made available for research studies, okay, for corporate governance, etc. You can just read about it. Nothing much I felt that needs explanation. Okay, next, moving ahead, SARAS. Okay, what is SARAS? SARAS is a collection of government e-marketplace portal, okay, developed by the Rural Development Ministry. So what is this? This is nothing but a collection, okay, showcasing daily utility product. All these are from prelims point of view, okay. Just remember, SARAS is a portal, okay, it is a collection of daily utility products, okay, made by the Rural Self-Help Group number 2. So therefore, it is being implemented by the Rural Development Ministry. The aim is what? The aim is to provide a marketplace for products manufactured or made by the Rural Self-Help Group. Aims to provide market in rural area to access central and state government buyers. Will be able to list their products, okay, in 5 categories: handicraft, handloom and textile, office accessories, groceries and pantry, and personal care and hygiene. I hope it is clear, very factual information. Okay, so Rural Self-Help Group can sell their products, okay, to government and central and state government buyers. Okay, SARAS. All these are asked in your prelims, very factual information, okay, for which you have to be aware. 1 minute. Next, Project Monitoring Unit has been launched by Ministry of Coal for helping the allocators of coal mines to obtain various clearance. Very simple. There's nothing much to remember. Okay, just information that you have to remember. Project Monitoring Unit. As I told you, the government has liberalized coal sector and has given license to private sectors. So for them to obtain clearances, a project monitoring unit has been set up. Okay, next, mutual agreement procedure. Okay, so the government has amended the income tax rule whereby, okay, they will be able to resolve tax dispute on mutual agreement procedure within a time frame of 24 months. Okay, so basically there can be an income tax dispute between entities from India and some other country. Okay, so an entity from another country comes and invests in India, and then there is some income tax dispute. Okay, so they can be resolved through this mutual agreement procedure. That is what it is. Okay, so the move is aimed at speedy settlement of disputes of multinational corporations that have opted alternative dispute resolution procedure. Let me tell you, like say UK, a company has come and invested in India, following which there is some income tax dispute. So under this mutual agreement procedure, okay, they can, instead of going to the court or instead of going to the tribunals, they can opt for this alternative dispute resolution process. What is that? Mutual agreement procedure. So they will select a third party who will try to resolve the issue between the two countries. So this will be for a time period allowed for 24 months. Similar to Lok Adalat. No, Lok Adalat is no, not similar to that. Okay, it's a Lok Adalat is an ombudsman. This will be like an third party, what do you say, mediator, something like that you can call it. Okay, who will try to resolve the tax related dispute. If both the parties are okay with it, then they will proceed by it. Or if they are not, within 24 months, if they are not able to find a resolution, then they will go through the legal measures. Okay, next, Bharat Market. Okay, again very important from your prelims point of view, that's all. Bharat Market is like your Amazon. What is Amazon? Amazon is an e-commerce market. So instead of going to Amazon or others, now Bharat Market has been created. Who has created this? The Traders Body Confederation, that is All India Traders, okay, All India Traders Confederation. They have created this e-marketplace called as Bharat Market, whereby all retail traders of our country can participate it's like Amazon itself. They can list their products, okay, and it's a end-to-end service. That means right from logistics, supply chain, everything will be included till they deliver the product to your home. Is that okay? Nationwide retailers can participate in this. Very simple. Okay, Bharat market. Next, safeguard unit duties on solar cell. Again, this is a very important topic. Safeguard duty. So, conventional topic like safeguard. What is safeguard duty can be asked. Okay, specifically with respect to solar cell, you are supposed to be aware also. Okay, so the government has extended this safeguard duty on import of cell. Now, let's first understand what is this safeguard duty. So, this is a special provision provided under the GATT. Okay, GATT is one of the agreement under WTO, General Agreement on Tariff and Trade. Okay, there is a provision under this called as safeguard duty. What is it? It allows a WTO members to temporarily increase the import duty. I'll repeat again. It allows the WTO members to temporarily increase the import duty in order to protect the domestic industries from import surge. Now, let's say there is increase in import, okay, of solar panel, because of which domestic solar panel manufacturers are suffering. To protect our domestic solar manufacturer, we will increase the import duty. Okay, we are allowed. We will not be violating the WTO norms because this is allowed under the WTO norm itself, or specifically it is allowed under the GATT agreement itself. This is known as safeguard duty. So safeguard duty is applicable to all countries. There are other special duties that the countries allowed to levy to protect their industries or domestic sector. One is called as anti-dumping duty. The other one is called as countervailing duty. I hope all of you are aware of anti-dumping. Anti-dumping is when a country sells a product in an exporting country less than what it would otherwise sell in their own country. That is known as dumping. To counter it, anti-dumping duty is levied. Countervailing duty is levied to counter what? Guys, countervailing duty is levied to counter what? To counter, quickly, export subsidies. Good. Okay, so if a country is giving export subsidy, their exports will become cheaper. Okay, so to counter that, the importing country will levy countervailing duty. I hope all of you understood this. Safeguard duty, anti-dumping duty, and countervailing duty. All of you? Yes. Safeguard duty. Okay, to protect our domestic sector from cheap import or surge in import. Anti-dumping duty to counter anti-dumping. To counter dumping, and countervailing duty is to counter export subsidies. Okay. Where were we? Yeah. So the safeguard duty was levied by the government on import of solar panel, especially solar panel coming from China and Malaysia. Okay. So solar panels coming from the China and Malaysia. So safeguard duty was it. This has now been extended. Okay. Okay. Next. Another factual information from your prelims, again very important from only prelims point of view. So there are some geographical indicator tag that has now been given. One is this chak ho. This is a scented glutinous rice cultivated in Manipur. Okay, it is known for its special aroma, eaten during community feasts. It is also known for its medicinal property. Okay, also known for its high crude fiber content. Is that okay? All these things you have to remember from your prelims point of view. Then terracotta work of Gorakhpur. Okay, so pottery make various animal figure, exporters make various animal figure. Okay, have been given. So they can ask something like this: match the following, etc. Because it is in news, they can ask these questions. Chak ho, from where? Terracotta figures of animals which has recently got GI tag is from which place, etc. Similarly, Kashmir saffron, your well-known Kashmir saffron, also has been given. Okay, it has been harvested in Karewa of Jammu and Kashmir. Okay. Yeah, Iran is the largest producer, just for information, followed by India. Okay, all these information you should be aware of. Okay, so it is known for the fact that only saffron in the world which is grown at an altitude of 1600 meters to 1800 meters. Is that okay, all of you guys? Is it getting boring, interesting? How is the class? Okay. Okay, good, interesting. Fine. Okay, good, fine. Okay, so I mean, basically, we are trying to cover as many topics as possible. Okay, it is not like we are going in depth. From prelims point of view, sometimes we have to be smart. Okay, know more topics, address what the demand of the question. Some of you might argue, or some of you want to know more about these topics. Okay, but trying to be smart and trying to appreciate what exactly is the demand of the exam. That is what is more important. Okay, I understand there could be a lot of things which technically I might have said it wrongly, but what I try to do is try to make it as simple as possible. Okay, so that we will be able to remember, appreciate it, so that we can rule out the options. Okay, so that is what try to remember as simple way as possible, as much as possible. Okay, and all these things you will be able to remember as you keep revising. So keep a copy of the magazine. Okay, at least 1 or 2 magazine you should be able to read before the exam, and repeatedly revise. Don't read multiple sources. Okay, problem I have seen is sometimes students who work very hard reading lot of things may not be able to clear the exam, because the in the exam they tend to get confused because they would have read from multiple sources, clarity will not be there, etc. So what I recommend is one source, repeatedly you read it. You might not be able to answer all the 100 questions, but at least majority of the question which is necessary for your exam you will be able to clear. So that should be your approach. Okay, so don't worry about some topics you might not be able to understand, just leave it. Okay, if you have given us a plan for 1 month, what would it be, sir? Okay, so for the next 1 month, that's what. So, yeah, I probably will just discuss that. Okay, so those who are preparing for KPSC, you guys have, like, let's say 1 month's time. Okay, so in this 1 month, you should start revising your current affairs. Don't ask me from which current affair. You should have already been, you are all exam going student, you should have already read once current affairs. Okay, at least 8 to 10 months. So first priority, 50 to 60% of your effort should go to current affairs. Okay, because current affairs does not have a syllabus. Okay, current affairs does not have a syllabus to say. Most of us tend to neglect it. See, for example, history, okay, has a syllabus. Oh, ancient, medieval, and modern. So it is very easy to track our progress. So therefore, it is very motivating or very rewarding when we read it, when we read history, when we complete freedom movement. It is very rewarding because we can go home and we can sleep nicely thinking that, oh, I've completed freedom movement. But from the exam point of view, ask a question. Is it really important? Because 15 question is asked from history, out of which 10 is national or Indian history and 5 is Karnataka history. And from this 10, okay, you have hardly around 5 questions that is coming from modern history. So for 5 questions you would have spent a lot of time. But on the other hand, current affairs 40 plus 40. Okay, but you will not know. You would have read 10-20 pages. You will feel like, oh, I have not read only. Okay, so therefore you will not read or focus on current affairs. So my recommendation is that 60% of your time should be dedicated for current affairs. So current affairs magazine, budget document, economic survey, and schemes and programs. Okay, so this is what you have to read. Okay, 60% of your time should be dedicated for whether it is UPSC or KPSC. This is what you have to do. Next, you focus on important subjects. Matlab important based on your priority. Which one you are comfortable with, you can start. Like polity, if you are comfortable, economy, environment. Look at this. Environment has 15 question, economy has 15 question, polity has 15 question, and these are comparatively less versus your history, because in history you have to read art and culture, you have to read ancient history, medieval history, modern. So therefore you have to prioritize which you want to give focus to. So one by one you start doing these subjects and solve MCQs. These are the three things you have to do. Okay, so solving MCQs not only will help you get clarity in topics, but also will help you to develop the skill. Sometimes even without knowing the questions and answers, you will be able to get if you know how to crack these MCQs. How many questions should we attempt in KPSC to be on a safer zone? Again, this is very subjective question. Okay, it depends on individual. That's why I'm telling you, practice MCQs, tests, etc. You will be able to get an idea as to how you are going to get. So it depends. See, if you are, depending upon the difficulty of the question paper. If the question paper, question paper is very difficult, if you feel it is very difficult, then the number of question you attempt should be comparatively lesser. If it is an easy paper, you should be able to attempt almost 90% of the question. Now, how do you say if the question is easy or difficult? Okay, so if it is a difficult paper, you have to solve around 70% of the paper. If it is an easy paper, you should solve more than 90%. Now, you might ask, how do we identify whether it's a difficult paper or an easy paper? There is what I feel, what I think, and it has always worked for me. So if I know the question, okay, then the question is easy. I may not know the answer, but if I have heard the question, then it's an easy question. If I have not heard the question at all, okay, let's say ancient history may they ask some question, some king, okay, this XYZ king did this. I have not heard it. So I will believe that nobody else has heard it. So therefore it's a difficult question. So if there is more number of difficult questions, then it's a difficult paper. Say if there is out of 100, if some 20 questions are like this, difficult questions, then it's a difficult paper. Okay, if there is only around 5 to 6 questions which are difficult, then it's a easy paper. Easy paper, why I'm telling you that if you know the question, then it's an easy question, because if you know the question, then somebody else also has heard the question and they also know the answer. So everybody, I will assume, will get it right. But if it's a difficult question, I will assume that everybody will not answer it or they will not get it correct. So therefore, I will consider it like this. So if it is a difficult paper, then the cutoff will be more. So therefore, you are expected to, if it is a difficult paper, the cutoff will be less. So you can mark around 70 to 80%. If it's an easy paper, you have to mark more than 90%. I hope I'm making sense, right? Then how many questions that you should attempt? See, this year the cutoff will be more. So please make sure that you mark good number of questions. Can few previous year papers be solved during class before the exam for KPSC? Previous years, let's see. See, previous year again is not very useful because it won't repeat. It will just give you an idea as to how questions will come. Maybe we can solve sample questions. Okay, so that will be a better option. Okay, I will look into it. Right. Okay. Fine. Okay, coming back to our discussion. Okay, I hope it is clear. Did I make sense? In a regular class, I can see your expression and I can accordingly, address the situation. Here, I cannot know. Okay, so this is how you try to solve. Make sure that you solve as many questions as possible. That is number one. Okay, rule out and all that. Maybe sometime I will tell you how to do these things also later on. Okay, now coming to the next topic. Post-devolution revenue deficit grant. Okay, so what is this post-devolution revenue deficit grant? Okay, so over here I have written it down. If you have not read the 15th Finance Commission and its report, etc., after the class, please read the 15th Finance Commission report. Very important. Okay, 15th Finance Commission report. Okay, what is their recommendation, etc. So in one of the recommendation, okay, so they will see what is basically your Finance Commission. The Finance Commission will decide how one of the recommendation will be on how the divisible taxes will be distributed among the state. Yes, all of you are aware the role of finance commission. So among the states, so central government will collect certain taxes. Some of these taxes will be divided among the states. Okay, so there is a formula for that. Okay, there are some changes that has been done by the 15th Finance Commission. All those things you read it, please. One of the changes that was done by the Finance Commission is that the Finance Commission has used 2011 census data. See what the percentage, etc. I'm not going into that. Okay, in the report it is all there. For you to understand this particular topic, the 15th Finance Commission has used the 2011 population census data for distributing the taxes, tax revenue between the state, because of which some of the states will incur losses or less money will come to them because their population has not grown as much as other states, especially the southern states. If you take for example Kerala, its population has not grown at the same rate as say Bihar. So what has happened is Bihar has got more money this time compared to Kerala. Kerala's actual share has reduced. Bihar's share has actually increased. Kerala versus Bihar. Is that understood? So the largest losers are Kerala, Himachal Pradesh, Punjab, etc. So there are 14 states. There are 14 states which is going to get less money from the central government through the 15th Finance Commission devolution. So that is known as post-devolution revenue deficit. Is that understood? Post-devolution revenue deficit. Okay, to compensate for that, the Finance Commission has announced grant. Is that understood, all of you? Okay, I'll repeat again. 15th Finance Commission, okay, has estimated that 14 states is going to get less money. Okay, this is estimated to be around how much? 74,000 crore less money is going to be received by the state. This will be compensated by the 15th Finance Commission. So Kerala is the largest loser. So they will get money from this 74,000 crore. I hope all of you understood. Okay, very important, right? Post-devolution revenue deficit grant is being given by the 15th Finance Commission. Okay, so much crore. So they are going to give it in installments. They are going to give it in installments. So the center has released 6,000 crore to the 14 states in the second monthly installment. I hope you understood the very important topic. Post-devolution revenue deficit grant is a mechanism provided by the Finance Commission to compensate for loss incurred by the state from the center. Okay, your homework is you will read 15th Finance Commission report. Okay, that is there in our magazine also. It is there in several online sources. Just read it. Okay, and remember all the data that is given there is very important. Is that okay? Next, status paper on government debt. Status paper on government debt. Again, this is also a very important topic, both from prelims point of view also, but mainly from understanding your means concepts. It is very important. So how much is the government debt, etc. This information is given here. Okay, very important for you to remember this. If not exact numbers, at least you should have a rough estimate of these numbers. Okay, so the status papers provide a detailed analysis of the debt position of Government of India as well as the state government. Now let's see some of the data. The central government's debts, okay, as a percentage of GDP has dropped by 1.1%. From 45%, 45.8%, it has dropped to 45.7%. Is that understood? So they can ask a question as to how much it is, etc. They can ask, or from mains point of view, you should be aware that our debt is how much? 45.7% of GDP. This number, please write it down in your micro notes and keep it. Next, a general government debt which includes both center and states, okay, declined by the same percentage, is now 68.6%. This is a combined debt of both center and state. Is that okay? This number also is very important. 68.6% center and state. Next, external debt is very less in India. So that is a good sign. External debt stood only at 2.7% of our GDP. And since most of it is official source, that means we are borrowed from official sources. Okay, India is protected from the volatility in international market. Volatility means that due to risk, most of the interest rates are fixed. Okay, it is not subjected to currency risk. Okay. If you are not aware of currency risk, please read about it. External debts are subjected to currency risk. Can anybody tell me what is this currency risk associated with external debts? Anybody can tell me what is the risk associated with this external debt? It's called as currency debt. Rupee volatility, yes. Okay, so when the rupee value depreciates, we end up paying more interest. Okay, we end up paying more interest, or in terms, yeah, exchange rate volatility. Very good. Currency demonetization, no, Pavitra, not to do with currency demonetization. Depreciation, maybe you are trying to tell it is depreciation. And the value of a rupee, very good, very good. Okay, so we'll move on. Okay, yeah, so external debt is only 2.7, and we are comfortable because most of this is from official source where the interest rate is already fixed and all that, and it will reduce the volatility. Is that okay? Next, 94 point whatever is liabilities consisted of domestic debt itself. Fine, these are all kind. Okay, then these numbers are not very important. Just keep in mind 40% is commercial bank, 24% insurance company, 5% is provident fund. Okay, average interest payment is 7.1%. All these numbers are not very. These three numbers are very, very important. Please remember them. Okay. Now, there is, yeah, you can just try to remember this. Okay, all these can be asked as a concept in your prelims. Okay, government liabilities, okay, have been broadly classified into debt contracted by against the Consolidated Fund of India, which is called as public debt. Okay, it is called as public debt. Then the liability incurred from public account is known as other liability. Please write it down or remember it, etc. Okay, now public debt incurred by Consolidated Fund of India, other liabilities by your public account like your provident fund, etc. Now public debt can be classified into your internal and external debt. So internal debt incurred from within the country, external outside. Internal debt consists of marketable, okay, and non-marketable debt. Non-marketable means those which cannot be sold. Okay, those which cannot be sold in the market. Okay, those which are not sold in the market. Okay, so some example: government dated securities, treasury bills. Okay, they comprise the marketable debts. Intermediary treasury bills which are issued by the state government, some central bank, some select central bank, or special security issued by National Savings Fund, securities issued by international financial institution, etc. They are examples of non-marketable internal debts. Then other liabilities are those which are incurred by your provident fund or reserve fund or deposits and other accounts. Is that okay? So this is how we classify our debts. This is how we classify our debts, and these numbers are very important: 45%, 68%, and 2.7%. Approximate numbers, at least you should be able to remember. Okay. And then there is one more thing, one more term: consolidated general government debts. Consolidated general government debts includes external debt by central government, external debt by state government, internal debt by central government, and internal debt by state government. All put together is known as consolidated general government debts. All these can be asked in your prelims. Okay? Like which of the following are part of consolidated general government debt? Like that question can be asked. Or which of the following is part of your public debt? Which of the following are part of other liabilities? Okay, like that question can be asked. So please remember from conventional economy point of view. Okay. Okay, moving ahead. Yeah, so consolidated sinking fund. Okay, consolidated sinking fund. That time I had told you there is an article on that. RBI has allowed, okay, to allowed the state government to take money from this consolidated sinking fund. What is this consolidated sinking fund? Okay, bring your attention over here. Okay, so this is basically a collateral for the loans taken by the state government. Now, for example, if Karnataka borrows money, some amount of money has to be kept as, a buffer. Okay, so this is known as consolidated sinking fund. Again, very important, consolidated sinking fund. State has to maintain a consolidated sinking fund with the RBI, okay, as a buffer against the repayment of their liability. That means they have taken loan, some amount of money has to be kept in the central bank as buffer, which is known as consolidated sinking fund. How much is it? The state government could contribute 1 to 3% of the outstanding market loan each year to the fund. Okay, so this will ensure financial discipline. This will ensure financial discipline. Now, the RBI has allowed to take money from this fund, okay, to meet their expenditure. This will help state governments to meet expenditures as a result of increased expenditure because of COVID. See, as on December 31st, 2019, UP, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Jharkhand, Himachal Pradesh, Jammu and Kashmir, and all states, okay, have this one. Don't have consolidated sinking fund. All other states have consolidated sinking fund. Is that okay? This fact may be remembered from your prelims point of view. Next, mega clusters across 9 states to attract global companies. Okay, just nothing very informative over here. India has drawn up a list of 10 mega clusters. Okay, including your Bangalore and all is there. Okay, so mega cluster across 9 states as the most attractive destination. So as you all know that foreign investors are now shifting their base from China. Okay, so therefore India is trying to attract these investments, okay, as an attractive investment destination. So infrastructure development, etc., will be done. Okay, this program is part of Invest India. So this is important. What is this Invest India? So Invest India is a special purpose vehicle. It's a company. Okay, it is established under the Companies Act. It is established under the Companies Act. For what purpose? For promoting foreign investment. To attract foreign investment, we have set up this Invest India company. So 49% of the equity is with the Department of Industrial Policy and all that. The rest 51% is by the consortium of industries and other things. All these information you can read from prelims point of view. Okay. Next, renewable energy certificate. So renewable energy certificate is in news because the sale of renewable energy certificate has reduced in this month, etc. That is what is in news. So that may not be important. What is important is what is this renewable energy certificate. So those who have read environment, etc., you would be aware that under the Indian Electricity Act, some entities are obligated to buy certain percentage of their electricity need from renewable sources. I'll repeat again. Under the Indian Electricity Act, okay, certain entities, okay, like DISCOM, Power Distribution Company, or Open Access Consumer, etc., they are expected to buy certain percentage of electricity from renewable sources. If they are not able to meet this requirement, then the alternative is they can buy this renewable energy certificate. Okay, so this is a tradable certificate, okay, whereby it's a market mechanism in order to meet their requirement criteria. Okay, so one renewable energy certificate, please remember this point, you can add it to your notes, environment notes. One renewable energy certificate is created when 1 megawatt hour of electricity is generated from an eligible renewable energy source. So under the renewable purchase obligation, certain buyers, they have to buy certain percentage of their electricity from renewable sources. Is that okay? So now because of these economic situation, they are facing problems. Okay. Next, balancing sugar production. This is just a concept. You can just read it. So they want to increase the ethanol blending of petroleum. Okay. Currently, India is now only using 6% blending. Should be increased to 10% by 2020. All that. Anyways, these are all concepts you can remember. Next, Bank Board Bureau. Okay, why is it in news? SN Rajeshwari has been selected as the chairman of Bank Board Bureau. In your conventional economic class, you would have already known what is this. It is basically an autonomous body, advisory in nature. Okay, so it will advise the public sector banks on various aspects. Okay, you can just read it over here. It is very clear, very simple. Just remember this name. It can be asked in your prelims. Very important, at least the name. Okay, it is made up of a chairman, 3 ex officio members, and 3 expert members. Every information is there. I will not go into depth of this. Okay. What else? Next. Guaranteed emergency credit line facility. Okay, so the central government has come up with a new scheme called as emergency credit line guarantee. Okay, under this scheme, 100% guarantee coverage will be provided by National Credit Guarantee Trust Company Limited for additional funding of up to 3 lakh crore rupees. Now, just to understand what is this credit guarantee scheme. Credit guarantee scheme is, see, under various schemes, you can borrow money without collaterals. Okay, so usually when you go borrow money, you have to keep a collateral. Only then the banks will give you loan. But under various schemes, you will get loan without you pledging any collateral. So in case if there is any default, who will guarantee it? It is guaranteed by this National Credit Guarantee Trust Company Limited. I hope you understood. Okay, so when you go get a loan, okay, without collateral, so somebody has to give guarantee. Who is giving you that guarantee? National Credit Guarantee Trust Company Limited. Look at this. If you bring your attention to this point, this place. Presently, there are 5 dedicated credit guarantee trusts under the management of NCGTC. That is National Credit Guarantee Trust Company Limited. Okay, so it is for education loans, skill development and other things, Stand Up India, MSME sector, etc. So these schemes under which the government or through this company will provide credit guarantee. Now that is why it is in news. So Union government has given an approval for an emergency credit line guarantee, which will help to cover the funding to the MSME sector under the Mudra scheme. Is that okay? The scheme will be applicable till October 31st or till 3 lakh crore is utilized. Okay, some other facts you can just read about it. Is that okay? So this is a new scheme to help the 16,000 crore has been disbursed in this. Okay. Right? Okay. Fine. Next, Financial Stability Development Council. Okay, so recently 22nd meeting of the Financial Stability and Development Council was held. So that may not be very important. What is important from the exam is what is this Financial Stability and Development Council. So basically this is a council which is chaired by the finance minister. It is basically it's an it's a council of all the regulators. It's a council of all the regulators of financial institutions. Like you have RBI for the banking sector, SEBI for stock markets, IRDA, etc. So all these regulators, in order to coordinate with each other, okay, a council was created in 2010. So what is the mandate? They will deal with financial stability, financial sector development, inter-regulatory coordination, financial literacy, financial inclusion, macro-prudency, etc. Okay, so this was set up to promote inter-regulatory coordination. This word you can remember. It is mainly to promote inter-regulatory coordination All the financial sector regulators are part of this council, chaired by whom? Union Finance Minister. Okay, so this meeting was held in order to ensure financial stability, because after economic crisis or because of COVID, there is fear of economic crisis. To prevent economic crisis in financial sector, this meeting was held. Is that okay? Next, coming to agriculture and allied sector, Rice Export Promotion Forum, okay, has been set up under this under the aegis of Agriculture and Processed Food Export Promotion Development Authority. Okay, so just read about it. Nothing much over here. Next, Commission for Agriculture Cost and Price has recommended increase in the MSP, okay, for the 17 summer sown or kharif crops. Okay, so you have to know. So you have to know over here what is MSP. Okay, who announces this MSP, on whose recommendation? What is this Commission for Agricultural Cost and Price? All these are very, very important. These are all basics from your agricultural topic. What is MSME, etc. So what is the recommendation? They have said that increase the MSME, has recommended higher support price for 17 summer sown crop. For how many crops is MSP announced? Guys, for how many crops is MSP announced? Minimum support price? 24, 25, 24. Yeah, 22, 14. Okay. 24. Okay. 22 plus 1. The sugarcane is fair and remunerative price. Okay. 22 MSP crops. Okay. Read about it. So these all you need to know. Okay. Basics. Next, scheme for formalization of micro food enterprise. So this is for food processing sector. Okay. This is for food processing sector. The central government has approved a new centrally sponsored scheme known as Scheme for Formalization of Micro Food Enterprise. Very self-explanatory. So under the scheme, they will be given access to finance, enhanced compliance of food quality and food standards, support system, transition from unorganized to formal sector, women and aspirational district will be promoted, encourage waste to wealth activity, focus on minor forest produce in tribal districts, generate 9 lakh skilled and semi-skilled jobs. So the salient feature is it's a centrally sponsored scheme. That means they will be shared between the center and state 60-40. Okay. And cluster-based approach. Focus will be given on perishable like tomatoes and other vegetable perishable products. Support will be given for individual micro unit. Beneficiaries will contribute at least 10%. Balance will be loan. Then skill and training will be provided. Technical upgradation of microprocessing unit will be done. A seed capacity to self-help group in the form of loan will be provided. Then grant will be provided for backward and forward linkage like infrastructure, etc. Common infrastructures will be developed. Packaging, marketing and branding will be focused upon. Okay? Skilling and hand-holding, all these things will be provided. Okay, this is a new scheme in food processing industry. Okay, next, National Beekeeping and Honey Mission. All these we had discussed in the economic package. This is little bit in more detail. I told you, as we go on, more and more schemes will be announced under that broad package. So here, National Beekeeping and Honey Mission. So it is going to under the theme called as Sweet Revolution. Obviously, honey, sweet revolution. Let's see the salient feature. The National Bee Board has created 4 modules to impart training as a part of National Beekeeping and Honey Mission. The government has launched Honey Mission as a part of Sweet Revolution. What is this? You can just read about it. The committee recommended that honey be as a unit of agriculture. So, I mean, just to give you an idea, the farmers will be provided the bee box, okay, along with the live living bee in them. They will be given training. Okay, and they will also be given various skill and other things for marketing purpose, etc. So some of the recommendation by this board: honeybee should be recognized as an input for agriculture, plantation of bee-friendly flora, okay, engaging women self-help group, National Bee Board and Enrichment will be rechristened as Honey and Pollination Board of India. Okay, they will be the research should be undertaken for honey production, etc. Infrastructure like storage, processing, marketing of honey, etc. should be done. See, these are all factual information, so that's why I'm not explaining much. You can read it and understand, but you should be aware that there is something called as honey mission or sweet revolution. Okay, so the government will set up National Beekeeping Honey Mission. It will be a centrally sponsored scheme. It will be implemented by Khadi and Village Industry Commission. Here, training will be given and bee boxes will be given with live colonies to beneficiaries. Is that okay? So this is an another effort to promote employment in rural area. Yeah. Next, direct seedling of rice. So most of you are aware that the paddy is grown by what is that? You know, what is that called? Yeah, standing water. Okay, grown on standing water. Initially, the paddy seedlings, okay, are grown on standing water. The objective of growing it on the standing water is to prevent weeds from growing. Okay, paddy growth is compromised by weed. To prevent this, they are grown on standing water. But the problem associated with this is it consumes lot of water. Okay, so an alternative to reduce the water consumption, there is a technique called as direct seedling of rice. Okay, so under the direct seedling rice, there is no nursery preparation or transplantation. The seeds are directly drilled into the field. Okay, but then there will be a lot of weed. To prevent that, chemical herbicides are going to be used. Chemical fertilizer or herbicides will be used to prevent this. Okay, but the problem is if you use more herbicide, then it is going to cost money, plus it is also going to cause harm. Okay, because they are chemicals. Anyways, this is just an idea. Okay, just to keep that in mind. Direct seedling of rice does not use water, standing water. Okay, so directly sown on the seed. And there is no need for transplantation, etc. Okay, so these are some of the topics from economy. Is it okay? All of you understood? Economic package. The economic package, you guys have to read more as and when it comes in the future. Okay. Next topic is report and indices. Okay, I'll not go into detail of this. This is something which you have to remember from both prelims and mains point of view. Okay, so you have press freedom index. For example, India is ranked at 1. So the examiner can ask you these following question. Who releases this data? Who releases these data? India's position in it. From your mains point of view, some of the data is important. You have to remember some of the important data when you are writing your answer. So when you are writing an essay on freedom of press or etc., you should be able to remember this data. When you are talking about migration, you will have to write about UNICEF lost at home report. Or when you are talking about environmental disaster, you might have to quote this data. So in that context, these things are important. But from prelims point of view, you just have to remember some of the important data and India's position in that, and who is releasing them. That is what can be asked in your exam. They have asked, 1 or 2 questions are always asked, who releases this particular data or index or report or other things. So there is press freedom index, lost at home report. That means large scale domestic internal migration. If you look at India, 5 million people were internally displaced due to natural disaster. All this number you have to remember from your mains point of view. Okay, roughly around 5 million people are internally displaced because of natural disaster. So we have seen in 2019 a lot of natural disaster, flooding, drought, etc. took place. Conflict and violence like mob lynching, etc. So the 5 million people were affected by it. This is something which you can remember. Okay, like that there are several data which you can remember about nutrition, food security, etc. When you are writing, you should be able to remember. India is among the 88 countries that are likely to miss global nutrition target. So food security program, etc. When you are discussing, you should remember this data. So this is, there is nothing much to explain. I'm just telling you what all you can remember. Okay. Energy efficiency, open budget. Okay. Global energy review. All these data you please read it before the next class. Okay. So I think I'll end the class with that. Okay. In the next class, we will be discussing science and technology. We'll complete it off, and then we will go to the state issues, Karnataka state issues. Okay. So today we got only time to explain economic issues. This reports and indices, just read on your own. Just try to appreciate it. Don't by heart all the data. No need to by heart all the data. Fine. Is there any doubts with respect to economy, what we have discussed? If there is no doubt, I will wind up the class.